A very good morning, my dear students. Today I will continue with the fungal infections. Last class we have seen about the oral candidiasis, its clinical feature, histopathological feature and the treatment aspect. Today we will be seeing about the histoplasmosis, blastomycosis, paracocdioidomycosis and cocdioidomycosis. First we'll start off with histoplasmosis. Histoplasmosis is the most common systemic fungal infection in the United States and it is caused by the organism Histoplasma capsulatum. The most cases of histoplasmosis produce either no symptoms or with mild symptoms that the patient does not seek medical treatment. The expression of the disease depends on the quality of spores inhaled, the immune status of the host and the strains of Histoplasma capsulatum. Now we'll move on to the clinical features of histoplasmosis. Clinically, it is of three types, that is acute histoplasmosis, chronic histoplasmosis and disseminated histoplasmosis. First, we'll see about acute histoplasmosis. It is a self-limited pulmonary infection that probably develops in only about 1% of people who are exposed to the lower number of spores. The symptoms such as fever, headache, myalgia, non-productive cough, anorexia is similar to that of influenza. Chronic histoplasmosis is also primarily affects the lungs, but it is also less common than the acute histoplasmosis. The chronic form usually affects older or immunosuppressant patients. Clinically, it appears similar to tuberculosis. Patient typically exhibits cough, weight loss, fever, dyspnea, chest pain, hemoptysis, weakness, and fatigue. Now we'll move on to the disseminated type of histoplasmosis. It is even less common than the acute and chronic type. This condition is characterized by progressive spread of the infection to the extrapulmonary site. Most oral lesions of histoplasmosis occurs with disseminated form of the disease. The most commonly affected sites are tongue, palate, and the buccal mucosa. The condition usually appears as solitary with variable painful ulceration for several weeks duration. However, some lesion may appear erythematous or white with an irregular surface. The ulcerated lesion will have a firm rolled margin and they may be similar clinically with that of malignancy. This is the clinical picture of an histoplasmosis. You can see the ulceration of the base of the tongue and the anterior part of the soft palate, which is whitish coating and few erythematous areas are seen. And if you see the borders are rolled out borders are seen. So that gives you a malignant like appearance. So the histopathology is needed for histoplasmosis to rule out the malignancy. Now we'll move on to the histopathological features. The microscopic examination of the lesion tissue shows either a diffused infiltrate of macrophage or more commonly the collections of macrophage organized into the granulomas. The multinucleated giant cells are usually seen in association with granulomatous inflammation. The causative organism can be identified with some difficulty in routine hematoxylin and eosin stain section. However, special stains such as the methenamine silver method or PAS is readily demonstrates 1 to 2 micron meter yeast of Histoplasma capsulatum. So this is the histopathological picture of an histoplasmosis. This tissue is stained using PAS. The histoplasma organism will be often clumps of small bright red color circles. I have made a marking to show you the histoplasma organism. This is the higher magnification of the same tissue. So you can see an numerous marking which I have made. So that shows you the clumps of small bright red color circles. So that is the histoplasma organism. So this is how this will appear histopathologically. So this is also the histopathological image of an histoplasmosis, but this is stained using an methenamine silver stain. So you can see the yeast form appears black circles. So you can see small clumps of black circles. So that is the histoplasma organism. Now we'll move on to the treatment of histoplasmosis. The acute histoplasmosis, because it is a self-limited progress, it generally requires no specific treatment other than supportive care with analgesics and antipyretic agent. The treatment of choice for patient with chronic histoplasmosis is intravenous amphotericin B, particularly in severe cases. The disseminated histoplasmosis is a very serious condition that results in death of about 80 to 90% of patients if they remain untreated. Amphotericin B is usually indicated for such patients. Once the life-threatening phase of the disease is under control, they should be administered with itraconazole for about 6 to 18 months. Now we'll see about blastomycosis. Blastomycosis is a relatively uncommon disease caused by the dimorphic fungus known as Blastomyces dermatitidis. It is almost always acquired by inhalation of spores, particularly after a rain. Although most cases of blastomycosis are either asymptomatic or produce only a very mild symptoms, patients who experience symptoms usually have a pulmonary complaint. Now we'll move on to the clinical features. Clinically, it is of two types, that is acute blastomycosis and chronic blastomycosis. Acute blastomycosis resembles pneumonia, which is characterized by high fever, chest pain, malaise, night sweats, and productive cough with mucopurulent sputum. Now we'll see the chronic blastomycosis. The chronic blastomycosis is more common than the acute form, and it may mimic tuberculosis. Both conditions are often characterized by low-grade fever, night sweats, weight loss, and productive cough. The cutaneous lesion begins as erythematous nodules that enlarge, becoming verrucous or ulcerated. This is the clinical picture of an blastomycosis. The left side picture you can see in multiple verrucous plaques with protruding ocular masses, whereas the right side picture you can see in multiple umbilicated lesion on the back. The oral lesion of blastomycosis may result from either an extrapulmonary dissemination or local inoculation with the organism. These lesions may have an irregular erythematous or white intact surface, or they may appear as ulceration with irregular rolled borders and varying degrees of pain. Clinically, because the lesion resembles the squamous cell carcinoma, the biopsy and histopathological examination is always required. Now we'll move on to the histopathological features. The histopathological examination of the lesional tissue typically show a mixture of acute inflammation and granulomatous inflammation surrounding a variable number of yeast. These organisms are 8 to 20 micrometer in diameter. They are characterized by a double refractal cell wall and a broad attachment between the budding daughter cell and the parent cell. Like many organisms, the Blastomyces dermatitidis can be detected more easily using a methenamine silver stain and the PAS method. The identification of these organisms is especially important because this infection often induces a benign reaction of the overlying epithelium in the mucosal or skin lesion called as pseudoepitheliomatous hyperplasia. Because this benign elongation of the epithelial retiridges may look like squamous cell carcinoma at the first glance under the microscope, the careful inspection of the underlying inflamed lesional tissue is mandatory. So this is the histopathological picture of an blastomycosis. You can see the epithelium, which is mild hyperplastic, whereas the connective tissue you can see an granulomatous inflammation with histiocytes and giant cells. I have made an arrow marking so that shows you the giant cells. So this is the higher magnification image of an blastomycosis. The left side picture is stained using hematoxylin and eosin, whereas the right side picture is stained using an PAS. So I have made an yellow color markings that demonstrate the organism of blastomycosis. If you compare the hematoxylin and eosin with the PAS, the organism is well demonstrated in PAS than the hematoxylin and eosin. Now we'll move on to the treatment aspect. As stated previously, most patients with blastomycosis requires no treatment. The administration of systemic amphotericin B is indicated only if one or more of the following is noted. That is, patient is seriously ill, patient is not improving clinically, and patient is ill for more than 2 to 3 weeks. Now we'll see about paracoccidioidomycosis, which is otherwise called as South American blastomycosis. Paracoccidioidomycosis is a deep fungal infection that is caused by Paracoccidioides brasiliensis. It has a distinct predilection for male with 15:1 male to female ratio that is typically reported. The striking difference is thought to be due to the protective effect of female hormones because of beta estradiol inhibits the transformation of hyphal form of the organism to the pathogenic yeast form. Patients with paracoccidioidomycosis are typically middle-aged at the time of diagnosis and most are employed in agriculture. Now we'll see the clinical features. It appears initially as a pulmonary infection after the exposure to the spores of the organism. Although the infection are generally self-limiting, the organism may spread by hematogenous or lymphatic route to the variety of tissue that includes lymph nodes, skin, and adrenal glands. The adrenal involvement often results in hypoadrenalism, that is the Addison's disease. The oral lesion appears as mulberry-like ulceration that most commonly affects the alveolar mucosa, gingiva, and palate. The clinical picture of an paracoccidioidomycosis where you can see an mulberry-like ulceration over the palate. Now we'll see the histopathological features. The microscopic evaluation of the tissue is obtained from an oral lesion and it may reveal an pseudoepitheliomatous hyperplasia in addition to the ulceration of the overlying surface epithelium. Paracoccidioides brasiliensis elicit and granulomatous inflammatory host response that is characterized by the collection of epithelioid macrophages and multinucleated giant cells. There will be a scattered large yeast that are readily identified after staining the tissue sections with methenamine silver or PAS method. The organism often shows a multiple daughter buds on the parent cell, resulting in the appearance that has been described as Mickey Mouse ears appearance or the spoke of the ship steering wheel appearance or marine's wheel appearance. In this slide, you can see two histopathological pictures. So first I'll start off with the left side picture. So the left side picture reveals a large round fungal form that is marked using a black color arrow. So above that you can see a red color arrow which has a narrow based bud that gives you a typical Mickey Mouse type of appearance. We can also term that as a captain wheel appearance. In right side picture I have made a black color arrow marking, so that shows you a multinucleated giant cells. So I have put this slide to demonstrate how a Mickey Mouse ears appearance and how a ship wheel appearance appear in histopathology. So you can see two markings over the slide, one with an white marking, the other one with an yellow marking. So the white marking demonstrates the Paracoccidioides brasiliensis with a double budding that gives you a Mickey Mouse ear appearance. Whereas the yellow marking, you can see a multiple budding of Paracoccidioides brasiliensis that gives you a ship wheel appearance. Moving on to the treatment aspect, it depends on the severity of the disease presentation. Sulfonamide derivatives are used to treat mild to moderate cases. For severe involvement, intravenous amphotericin B is usually indicated. Now we'll see about coccidioidomycosis, which is otherwise called as San Joaquin Valley fever, which can be shortly called as valley fever. Coccidioides immitis is the fungal organism that is responsible for coccidioidomycosis. Most infection with this organisms are asymptomatic. Approximately 40% of infected patients experience a flu-like illness and pulmonary symptoms within 1 to 3 weeks after involving the arthrospores. Now we'll see the clinical features of this infection. Fatigue, cough, chest pain, myalgia and headache are commonly reported. Occasionally the immune response may trigger a hypersensitivity reaction. that causes the development of erythema multiforme like cutaneous eruption or erythema nodosum. The erythema nodosum is a condition that usually affects the skin of the legs, and it is characterized by the appearance of multiple painful erythematous inflammatory nodules in the subcutaneous connective tissue. This hypersensitivity reaction occurring in conjunction with the coccidioidomycosis is termed as valley fever and is resolved as a host cell mediated immune response and controls the pulmonary infection. The chronic progressive pulmonary coccidioidomycosis is relatively rare. It mimics tuberculosis with clinical presentation of persistent cough, hemoptysis, chest pain, low-grade fever, and weight loss. The disseminated coccidioidomycosis occurs when the organism spread hematogenously to the extrapulmonary site. Cutaneous lesion may appear as papule, subcutaneous abscess, verrucous plaque, and granulomatous nodule. It is of prime significance to the clinician is the predilection of these lesions to develop in the area of the central face, especially in the nasolabial fold. The oral lesions are distinctively uncommon, and these have been described as an ulcerated granulomatous nodules. Now we'll see the histopathological features. The biopsy material shows large round spiracles that may contain numerous endospore. The host response may be variable, ranging from suppurative neutrophilic infiltrate to a granulomatous inflammatory response. The special stains such as PAS and methenamine silver method enable the pathologist to identify the organism more rapidly. Now we'll see the histopathological picture of an coccidioidomycosis. You will see in coccidioidal spirals within the connective tissue. The arrow marking shows the endospores are evident within a large spirals. Now we'll see the treatment aspect. Amphotericin B is administered to the following groups. That is for the immunosuppressant patient, patient with severe pulmonary infection, patient who have a disseminated disease, patient who are pregnant, patient who appears to be in life-threatening situation concerning the infection. For many cases of coccidioidomycosis, fluconazole or an itraconazole is the drug of choice, usually given in high doses for an extended period of time. Ketoconazole may also be used as an alternative treatment for mild to moderate cases of coccidioidomycosis. So this is regarding the doubts which have been asked in my previous two classes. The first doubt is whether a viral lesion have both DNA and RNA type of virus. So whatever the viral lesion which I have taken will have either a DNA or a RNA type of virus only. But there are few examples where a particular lesion will have both DNA and RNA type of virus also. The second doubt is in pseudomembranous candidiasis, the plaque can be wiped away with a gauze. Will there be any recurrence? See, first of all, wiping away the white covering in an pseudomembranous candidiasis is just for a diagnostic purpose only, and it is not for a treatment procedure. In this way, we can able to differentiate candidiasis from other white lesion like leukoplakia, lichen planus, frictional keratosis, or even an oral submucous fibrosis. See, நீங்க ஒரு காஸை வச்சு அந்த ஒயிட் லீஷனை வைப் பண்ணீங்கன்னா அந்த ஒயிட் லீஷன் வந்து போயிருச்சுன்னா அது வந்து கேண்டிடியாசிஸ். சப்போஸ் அந்த ஒயிட் லீஷன் போலன்னா அது வேற ஏதாவது ஒரு ஒயிட் லீஷனா இருக்கலாம். போயிரும் இந்த சென்ஸ் அது வந்து கம்ப்ளீட்டா போயிடும் இல்ல, எகெயின் அது மேல வந்து பிளாக்ஸ் டெவலப் ஆகி திரும்ப அது வந்து ஒரு ஒயிட் லீஷனா தான் இருக்கும். So we have to go for a treatment plan. That is, you have to give an antifungal therapy to treat oral candidiasis. Second thing, recurrence இருக்குமானா definitely recurrence will be there. But if a particular patient is maintaining his oral hygiene very good, means recurrence rate will be lesser. Whereas if a particular patient have a poor oral hygiene, definitely there will be a recurrence of oral candidiasis. So that completes today's class. So to conclude my class, first we saw about histoplasmosis, which is the most common fungal infection in United States and which is caused by Histoplasma capsulatum. In that we have seen three forms of histoplasmosis, that is acute form, chronic form and disseminated form. The ulcerated lesion will be of a firm and rolled margin and which is very difficult to differentiate clinically from a malignancy. Next, we saw about blastomycosis, which is caused by dimorphic fungus. In that, chronic form is more common compared to the acute form and which mimics tuberculosis. And the oral lesion of blastomycosis will resemble similar to that of squamous cell carcinoma. Next, we saw about paracocdioidomycosis, which is a deep fungal infection. The oral lesion appears as a mulberry-like ulceration, and histopathologically, if you see, you will see a multiple daughter cells on the parent cell appears as an Mickey Mouse ear appearance or marine wheel appearance. Next, we saw about the coccidioidomycosis, which is a flu-like disease, and it is often referred as a valley fever. The oral lesions are distinctively uncommon and have been described as an ulcerative granulomatous nodules. So I guess you have understood my class today. If you have any doubts regarding today's class, you can write down your doubts in Google form. Thank you. Have a great day.